The Legend of the Beatles Episode Number 1. The Beatles were an English rock band formed in Liverpool in 1960. With a lineup comprising John Lennon, Paul McCartney, George Harrison and Ringo Starr, they are regarded as the most influential band of all time. The group were integral to the development of 1960s counterculture and popular music's recognition as an art form. Led by primary songwriters Lennon and McCartney, the Beatles built their reputation playing clubs in Liverpool and Hamburg over 3 years from 1960. Lennon-McCartney was the songwriting partnership between English musicians John Lennon and Paul McCartney of the Beatles. It is the best known and most successful musical collaboration ever by records sold, with the Beatles selling over 600 million records worldwide as of 2004. Between the 5th of October 1962 and the 8th of May 1970, the partnership published approximately 180 jointly credited songs, of which the vast majority were recorded by the Beatles, forming the bulk of their catalog. By early 1964, the Beatles were international stars, leading the British invasion of the United States pop market and breaking numerous sales records. They soon made their film debut with A Hard Day's Night, 1964. From 1965 onwards, they produced increasingly innovative recordings, including the albums Rubber Soul 1965, Revolver 1966, and Sgt. Pepper's Lonely Hearts Club Band 1967, and enjoyed further commercial success with the Beatles, also known as the White Album 1968 and Abbey Road 1969. In 1968, they founded Apple Corp., a multi-armed multimedia corporation that continues to oversee projects related to the band's legacy. After the group's breakup in 1970, all four members enjoyed success as solo artists. Lennon was shot and killed in December 1980, and Harrison died of lung cancer in November 2001. McCartney and Starr remain musically active. On the 11th of February 1963, the Beatles recorded 10 songs during a single studio session for their debut LP, Please Please Me. The album was supplemented by the 4 tracks already released on their first 2 singles. Martin originally considered recording the Beatles' debut LP Live at the Cavern Club, but after deciding that the building's acoustics were inadequate, he elected to simulate a live album with minimal production in a single marathon session at Abbey Road. After the moderate success of Love Me Do, the single Please Please Me met with a more emphatic reception. Released in January 1963, 2 months ahead of the album of the same name, the song reached number 1 on every UK chart except Record Retailer, where it peaked at number 2. Released in March 1963, the album initiated a run during which 11 of their 12 studio albums released in the United Kingdom through to 1970 reached number 1. Issued in August, the band's 4th single, She Loves You, achieved the fastest sales of any record in the UK up to that time, selling 750,000 copies in under 4 weeks. Became their first single to sell 1 million copies, and remained the biggest-selling record in the UK until 1978. Capitol Records' lack of interest throughout 1963 did not go unnoticed, and a competitor, United Artists Records, encouraged their film division to offer the Beatles a 3-motion picture deal, primarily for the commercial potential of the soundtracks in the US. Directed by Richard Lester, A Hard Day's Night involved the band for 6 weeks in March-April 1964 as they played themselves in a musical comedy. The film premiered in London and New York in July and August, respectively, and was an international success, with some critics drawing a comparison with the Marx Brothers. Controversy erupted in June 1965 when Queen Elizabeth II appointed all 4 Beatles members of the Order of the British Empire (MBE) after Prime Minister Harold Wilson nominated them for the award. In protest, the honor was at that time primarily bestowed upon military veterans and civic leaders. Some conservative MBE recipients returned their insignia.